one of the most crucial pieces of paperwork we all need to finalize is that beneficiaries page to our investments and insurance policies. And yet it is too often overlooked. Today we learn why it is so vital with the president of Safe Harbor Retirement Group, Cory Sickles, the sponsor of this segment. So Cory, this is honestly something that is so important, and it's so, like, I guess something that just people forget about. I don't know. What is the reason so many people overlook this page? Well,
I'll say this. The one issue I see more than anything else are workplace retirement accounts.
Okay.
A lot of times you might switch jobs and, you're married. Maybe you get a divorce, but you have an old 401k that still has the ex-spouse on it, or you even have a pension. And I've seen that quite a bit too. But I think as we change jobs and do things, you kind of forget about some of the accounts that you have. If you're working with an advisor, the advisor should be keeping up to date with you on that, but it's all these little other accounts that you have opened up that I think are the true big issues.
And it's maybe that some people think, oh, I fixed it on this one. I didn't realize I had 12 others that I had to fix it in, because they don't all talk to each other.
That's correct.
Right?
And that's why it's so important also as you're changing jobs, is maybe consolidate some of these accounts, because you kind of forget about them too.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So if you have a will or trust, does that also mean you need to update all of these, or does that kind of supersede or trump everything else?
When we start talking about investment accounts, and I hear this a lot, clients will go, I already have my will or my trust done. However, beneficiary forms override anything you have in a will or trust. And a lot of people are aware of that. So just because you update your will or trust does not mean you've updated an old 401k or an IRA or your brokerage firm. The beneficiaries, that form supersedes anything else that you have. Now, when we start talking about other issues that we see, there's always three accounts that I always see issues with: houses, vehicles, and bank accounts.
Okay.
And it's something that, because we handle the brokerage side or the investment side, those three things are usually the things that can go through probate.
So how often should we be looking at these? Is it a yearly thing, or can we kind of just, whenever something changes, take a look?
Well, I think it's two things. You should look at them every year. Things do change. And sometimes sometimes maybe the 401k company maybe even dropped it off of that for whatever reason. So it's always good to update that just to make sure on an annual basis. But you also, if something happens, you need, during that event or during that year, maybe you got a divorce or someone passed away, you need to be able to update it at that point in time as well.
What are some of the biggest issues and concerns with not updating it, with getting to that point where you pass and they're all different, or something didn't change?
Well, if you don't have anything on there, then it's going to go probably more than likely through the probate process, and hopefully you have a will. At that point, then the will maybe could supersede that.
Okay.
But now we're talking about delaying. You're talking about now some type of fee in order to do that. And then you just don't want to be in a situation where now you're going to allow someone else to make the decision on how your assets are actually going to be divided.
Let's talk about the details of the beneficiary, because I know, when they're your children and then all of a sudden they grow up maybe and move out of the house, they get married, they have an address change, a name change. Does all of that need to be changed as well?
Yes, what I would do is, especially, if you do have say it's a sister or a daughter or a female in general, and they get married and they do a name change, you're definitely going to want to be able to have that, because if not, there just might be either a delay or a situation where it could go through probate because the names don't actually match. But as people move, address changes and things like that, I would always update those beneficiary forms as well.
And then the benefit, obviously, to keeping those things with an advisor is that they can then say every year, let's go over this, let's make sure things have changed, right? Because you have probably had a number of people come in after they, didn't look at anything for 10 years and find some trouble.
That's correct. We're going to handle all the accounts that are with us, but I think it's always a good idea, because a lot of times they'll bring in, like their pensions. And, on their pension, you're going to be able to see 9 times out of 10 who the beneficiary is. And believe me, I've had situations where they've remarried. The ex-spouse is still on that beneficiary form, and they're both sitting right across from me.
Yeah.
So that's not a good conversation to have on the way home when you leave the office either.
There you go. If that is an incentive to sit down with an advisor, I don't know what is. All right, Cory has free consultations at any point, so go to safeharboroh.com and get all the info you need. Cory, thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin.